Hey gang, this is Eric Shanefield with Local Marketing Institute. I am thrilled that we are restarting our weekly office hours sessions, but we're going to do it in kind of a Q&A format. And I am very excited to be joined by Jason Brown with Review Fraud and Ben Fisher with Steady Demand, both of whom happen to be platinum Google My Business product experts. So I am very excited to have them joining me. Good friends. Guys, welcome on board.
Hey,
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Great. Well, we're going to kick in here in just a second. We've got a ton of questions people have submitted. If you're watching us live here on Zoom, we're also trying a simulcast on YouTube. If you're watching us in either place, feel free to just put your questions into the chat, put your questions into the Q&A. We'll be monitoring those. And we're going to try to answer as many as we can, but we have some questions that were pre-submitted already as well. Before we go in, just a couple quick announcements. Make sure, if you're not already, go to the Local Marketing Institute website, sign up for email newsletter. It's right there on the homepage. That'll get your invitations to these sessions and then the other things that we're going to do here as we keep moving forward. Join our Facebook group. We have Local Marketing Institute Connect, Jason, Ben, myself. We have a ton of other people out there, some amazing local search and digital marketing experts out there. It's completely free. Go out there, feel free to join it. Just search for Local Marketing Institute Connect. And then lastly, we will take all of these episodes and we will be putting them out as a podcast. So you can go to the Local Marketing Institute website. Podcast link is on there. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeart, TuneIn, which should also power Alexa, everything. So all these episodes will also be available as podcasts. That's it for the housekeeping notes. Jason, Ben, you guys ready to dive into some questions here?
Let's do this.
All right. Well, let me bring up a couple of the first questions here. Let's take a look at this one here. Well, let's just kick off this one right off the top of the bat. I love this question, and I think I hear this one from a lot of people a lot of times. How do I get my Google My Business listing to rank in the top 3 throughout my entire market area? Right. Let's go there, because I mean that's what everybody wants, right? That's the holy grail.
Well, the answer, of course, is to put up as many fake locations all over the place as you can, as quickly as in the same account.
Right. That's the quickest way to get yourself suspended.
That's the quickest way for me and Jason to come after you. That's correct.
Right.
Oh man. No, I mean, so I guess I'll lead on this one really quick. I mean, getting it to show up basically in the top 3 in your market, you got to understand that there's only a couple things that really directly influence a Google My Business profiles ranking. And that's going to be the business name, the category that you have, your subcategories, of course, as well. The URL that you're linking to also, I believe, has some impact too. And then finally, it's going to come down to reviews and links. And even though I've always been kind of anti-citations, I've got to say I'm starting to lean a little bit closer towards local citations, because I just wrapped up a big test and found out some of that local citations actually did move a GMB needle. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Jason, what do you think, bud?
Yeah, no, I think definitely for the user that submitted this question, your website, I think, is the biggest hindrance that you have. You have a mobile speed score of 6. You don't have any optimized meta descriptions and titles on your website. You have a bunch of broken links, missing alt image tags, not a lot of content for your words. So for this case, I would definitely say if you're going to want to rank locally, you need to, do a comprehensive overhaul audit of your website. And I would start with there, because I think that might be part of your biggest issue. Like, you can get as many reviews as you want, you can get as many links, but honestly, if your website's not up to snuff and you are not where you need to be, then yes, you're going to be, behind the 8 ball with people trying to find stuff. Like, there's just not a whole lot of written, optimized content for your search queries.
This is the website that the person submitted, and by the way, we asked permission. So this is the site, a home inspector in East Alabama. I think one of the things that jumps out to me here first, I think, is expectations. How can I show up in the top 3 pack for my entire area I serve? In this case here, it looks like East Alabama, all of East Alabama. And the realities are, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but you're just not going to rank in the top 3 in a big geographical area, because Google still looks at the proximity to the person searching as one of the top ranking factors. Is that correct?
Correct. You definitely need to be dominating your market. Google's going to rank you based where your address is for your actual listing. But yeah, if you're not optimized and your competitors are more optimized than you are, yeah, you're going to be at the disadvantage. So focus on your local market, then start branching out into other areas.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can do a little bit that can impact prominence, but I mean, really proximity is the key. So one of the first things that I'd like to look at personally is like, for instance, the verification address of the Google My Business listing, making sure that is within the city boundaries, basically. In this case, East Alabama, it's going to be pretty easy. But I think you're right in managing expectations that not every business is going to be able to rank 3 consistently across an entire half of a state. It's just not very realistic unless there's very little competition.
Yeah, to me, that's the biggest thing right there. The biggest message I want to give away is, look, unless you are cheating the system and putting up a bunch of fake listings all over the place, which you can do, but that is going to put you and your listing at great risk of being suspended or having other penalties against it. So, what I always recommend is say, do the best you can to optimize your GMB listing. Put up some good location pages on your website. Do the best you can with it, but realize you're not going to rank everywhere. You'll rank still pretty well close to where you are. And if you need the coverage beyond there, well, that's where geo-targeted things like, geo-targeted Google ads or Facebook ads comes into play, unfortunately.
Service ads.
Local service ads, another great way especially this is a service provider.
Yep.
That's absolutely good. So that kind of leads me into another question here that I wanted to get.
Trisha just asked a good question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Trisha, okay, so Trisha's asking, Trisha Clements, hi, is asking if an SAB, service area business hidden address, needs to be changed. Is this still causing suspension problems? Okay, so let's see where I can start with this one. If you are changing from a service area based business to a storefront, that could always cause a suspension, number one. If you're trying to just update your address, you need to think about things very simply. And okay, so you're saying it's SAB, got it. So yes, so there is currently a bug with service area businesses right now, where even if you change the address, as soon as you clear it, it's actually going to revert it back to whatever the previous address was. We discovered this, I don't know, what was it, probably 3 months ago, something like that.
Yeah.
It's still under fix. This will not cause a suspension mostly. Okay, I say mostly because anything can cause a suspension. So that's why you're getting that answer. It should be safe. The problem is that if you're in, say, the same zip code or in the same city, you're still going to be ranking decently, even though the address didn't change. Okay. Now, the only way for you to tell if the address sticks is through the API, which of course not everybody has. And so what I would say for you, Trisha, is just hit me up on Twitter. And if you want to give me access to the listing, I can take a look at it and you can change the address, and then I can go ahead and tell you if it's stuck or not. If it didn't, there's not much you can do about it. Unfortunately, at this point, the only thing that you can do, however, I will tell you this, there is hope, is you can reach out directly to support and you can ask them to manually set the address. And then they will go ahead, they'll do that. We'll just watch out for the advice they give you after that, because they might tell you to set it as a storefront when it's actually an SAB, which obviously you shouldn't do.
Or create a new
Go ahead, Jason.
I said, or support's gonna do some nonsense where they try to tell you to create a brand new listing and start all over, and you don't want to do that. And the other issue that we've been seeing that I don't think is completely fixed is when you do update an SAB address, they've been magically putting people in the middle of Kansas, and so all of a sudden you see like a massive drop in calls, clicks, and conversions because you're no longer being found in your market. And I think but support is aware of that bug as well and can actually work through fixing and addressing that as well.
Yeah, the Kansas address I think has been pretty much fixed, but the other problem with SABs too is sometimes when you clear the address on an SAB, is it will nullify the address completely, and that's what led to the Kansas bug.
Right.
So basically, yeah. So you got to be a little bit careful with your SABs, but support can help. Just like Jason said, create a new listing if they tell you to. Just go to the
with Trisha's question again, it is an SAB business. The business just moves slightly. They want to update it, and I think she's just concerned that if she updates that, it could trigger a suspension. It may very well, but it most likely would be a soft suspension, meaning the listing's still out there. And
no, that actually is not true. It would probably be a hard suspension. But regardless of that, is what I would say is if it's a slight move and it's an SAB, as a general rule of thumb, leave it alone. Don't worry about it. Don't change the address because it's a slight move. If you're moving zip codes or cities, that's when you need to worry about the verification address for the moment. So just leave it alone and just sit on it, because the only time you're going to actually need to change that address is during a reinstatement.
Okay, good advice. All right, let's go to a couple more questions here. There was a good question that came in that talked about the kind of back to your thing about the top 10 to 15 things to optimize for Google My Business. I'm seeing a couple of different questions and chats coming in around that, but what are the most important things to optimize to get success with Google My Business?
I'll go first then on this one. So there's only 4 things that are really truly going to move the needle when it comes to local rankings, and that's your business name. So if you set up a DBA and rebrand yourself to get your keywords in there, what your website URL that you're linking to. Are you linking to your homepage? Is it properly optimized? Are you linking to an internal landing page that's optimized for your keywords and your location? Your reviews and your categories. Honestly, the rest of the stuff is like parsley. So you push it to the side. Yes, you want to make sure you have photos because customers are going to be checking out your photos. Google Posts. I mean, I hate Google Posts. I know a lot of people swear by them, but I have not seen. It has no bearing on your rankings. You might get a couple clicks and conversions off it, but it's not really going to help you. Adding services is kind of a moot point. I mean, it's nice to tell people what you do and what you offer. Q&As are nice because you can post preload questions that you normally get and then have them answered. But I mean, ultimately, and Joy just did a study on this one with Moz, last month with the 4 things that move the needle. Everything else is just window dressing. So it completes your profile, but is it going to move the needle and get you ranking over your competition? No. So name, category, your website, that URL that you're linking to, and then reviews. But also remember, the business with the most reviews isn't the one that's going to perform the best, right? So Mike Blumenthal has done a couple studies on this one. He's seen after X amount of reviews, you have no more ranking value out of it. So, it might be a business needs 12 reviews to rank. And then after that, there's zero value in it, any longer.
One thing I want to add to that is this. So we talked about the ranking fact, the core attributes twice now, right? So the other thing I'd like to focus on is basically thinking just more about customer experience. Because these are things that can just basically create with, consider engagement signals. And engagement signals is something that Google absolutely uses. They've always used engagement signals of some kind. So by doing your Q&A, by getting reviews, by responding to your reviews, by pretty much touching every single aspect of GMB, that's going to indirectly assist with your ranking because you're going to have a better customer experience, which, like as Jason was saying, with posts can lead to sales. Yeah, you say no, I've heard a lot way differently. But so it's like, I know one guy who does a post every single week and he ends up getting about 3 new sales every single time he does it, which is pretty cool. So, but anyway, that's what I would say as far as that goes. Just complete your profile. But
so I wanted to chip in a little bit here on the ranking factors. I hear this all the time. And I think that there's a whole discussion about this. Ranking factor, ranking is what everybody is well fixated on. But that's just a leading metric. What the real metric is engagements and leads that are being generated from this. So it's one thing to say, hey, can you rank and beat, and find a way to, optimize or even trick Google's algorithms. But it's another thing to say, can I get people to my Google My Business listing and then convert them into leads, get them into my business, get them to call me, get them to visit my website, get them to message me, whatever it may happen to be, to engage with them and move them down that level. So I would just encourage people, hey, yes, ranking is important. I get it. And there are things that we can talk about to optimizing it. Jason and Ben touched on them, everything from your categories, getting as complete of a listing as you can, you're making sure your business name is accurate, all the stuff that we know, reviews, consistent stream of reviews coming in, your website is optimized as it can and connected. But at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to, I'd rather have 100 people see my Google My Business listing and engage with me 50% of the time than have 1,000 people visit my Google My Business listing and only get like 3 leads out of it. It's about engagement, not ranking. So I'll throw that out there for what that's worth.
It's kind of how like it works in social media, right? It's like, I want a Facebook page with 1 million likes and 10 likes per post. Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's actually been a couple of good questions that have been coming in, by the way.
Yeah, I see lots of them here. I'm gonna jump in on some of these here. So this is a good one, and Jason, I think you posted about this recently. Any recommendations on the best avenues for reaching GMB support right now? It's been obviously changed a lot with COVID, but I think there's been some recent changes. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, so the brand new latest, and everybody's going to be super excited, is there's now phone support for people that love phone support. I'm not a big fan of phone support. I'd rather do chat. But chat did come back a couple of weeks ago, and it varies on how. And Ben did a great study on this one. How you fill out the questions is how Google is going to route your questions. Whether you're going to get the option for email, for chat, or for phone support. We still have no ETA on social support, and I mean, I was surprised to see phone chat come back or phone support come back. So, I mean, it's anybody's guess if we're going to see chat, or I'm sorry, social media support, Twitter and Facebook. But yeah, a lot of people have been telling people to, if you have an issue with your Google listing, go to Twitter. And I keep saying, stop it. No. Since March, it's been offline. So anyway, it tells you to go to Twitter support, doesn't understand local, and you probably should ignore them.
Yeah.
Anything else on that from your perspective?
No, I mean, the only thing I'll say is that so I found out that the phone support came back, and the first thing I did was actually I messaged Jason, and I was like, "Oh, great, here we go. A lot of people getting wrong information again. That's awesome." But it's pretty easy to get to. Actually, you just type in customer service as your support actually as the first thing you do on the help form. And then you actually select the chip for complaint about customer service. And that'll bring you to the option with phone, chat, and email, which you can talk to them about anything. But that's the easiest path that I found to get to it.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to tackle this. And I know that you guys have too much, but let's talk about what's publicly available on this. There was some chatter about a Google Guaranteed badge that was going to be optioned for different listings. This particular person manages hundreds of listings, but hasn't seen it rolled out yet. Do you know much about this? Is it still not fully rolled out?
Definitely not fully rolled out. So, I mean, I just had a client of ours reach out to us like yesterday, literally, and he is a criminal defense lawyer, and he saw it pop up in his dashboard. So that's great for him. He can now get Google. He can get the Google screens, and then move into LSA obviously after that. But yeah, no, it's definitely not fully rolled out.
Okay.
It's testing.
It's testing. Gotcha. Well, for those of you who are not familiar with this, let me bring, I think this is what I got here. Yeah, is this it here? Yeah. Are you seeing the Google My Business thing from Tom Waddington?
Yeah.
So on September 17th, Tom Waddington, really good friend of us, and he really knows his stuff out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Tom's a good guy. Anyway, he noticed this at the end of July 2020. If you haven't seen this yet, guys, they are offering the ability to basically add a Google guaranteed badge directly on a Google My Business listing instead of just up in the local service ads at the low cost of $50 a month is what he said. So this was out there. I think they're definitely looking at this. You can see the Google guaranteed. Adding your profile to stand out. So it's talking about, he said this is primarily in the services industry right now that's coming out there. He gave a great article on what this looks like. So we'll put this in the chat, in the transcript when this is done. It shows a little Google guaranteed right on there. And so this is a great article that Tom wrote out there. I'll put a link out to it. Bottom line, it's not being fully rolled out yet, but I'll give you my impression of it. If Google starts rolling this out in the industries it rolls it out, there's going to be a big dichotomy, in my opinion, between businesses who are showing the Google guaranteed badge and businesses that aren't showing the Google guaranteed badge. And I think it may, maybe not from a search engine ranking perspective, I don't know about that, but from a consumer confidence level and then an engagement level, it's probably going to make a big difference, in my opinion. Now, so again, I don't know about you guys as far as your opinions on that, if you think it's going to influence people's behaviors, or if you can even comment on that. I know you can't comment on upcoming features that you guys are aware of, but regardless of which, just putting my shoes on, it's going to be tough and you're in one of these markets to not want to spend that.
Sure. So the one thing I'm going to say is just because you see a Google guarantee on a listing, that just means that if you have a bad service, Google's supposed to cover, that service call. So that's just kind of like that nice thing with with the LSAs. It doesn't mean that you're going to get, a really great, scrupulous company. I dealt with a company that got suspended for being a complete, knucklehead, not to mention words. And I mean, the guy had, a whole bunch of bought fake reviews after getting the Google guarantee. So, there's no guarantee. You're not going to be completely protected and safe from getting, a bad vendor or somebody you shouldn't do business with. It just means that Google did a check and made sure that they were licensed and verified and had all the insurance and all that stuff. Doesn't mean, you're going to get a great company. So always buyer beware, do your homework, do your research. Like I always say, check their Yelp reviews or Facebook reviews, check them out with the BBB, look for complaints, look at the reviews. If you start seeing a bunch of stock photos for women, promoting anti-aging cream, just because they have that Google guarantee doesn't mean you're going to be safe and protected.
True.
Yeah, the things I'll add to this is that so with the Google guarantee and the Google screen badge, right? Because there is a difference between the two. They're both screened the same way. But with those, what I have seen across clients is that, and just from other agencies I've been talking to, is that they've seen about a 20% decrease in the traffic that they get from their organic listings, GMB listings, by the way. So that's what they're seeing as far as like impact goes. But this has been around since the locksmith days when LSA first started in the first place. I think the Google screened badge, to be honest with you, is a lot more important or interesting at this time, at least, than the Google guarantee. Because Google guarantees, is up at the top. It's a 3 at the top. Google screen can actually show in the, I believe it's in, not sure if it's in the 3-pack, but I know it's in the local finder now. And I agree with you that if I see a badge that says guaranteed or screened by Google, I'm going to have, as a consumer, I'm going to feel a lot more confidence. And as a consumer myself, I already do that. I found myself doing that. It's like I was looking for an HVAC company recently. I went through the Google guaranteed listings before I went to the organic listings.
Yep. Hey, we'll move on to a few other questions here. Got tons of questions coming in. Thanks, guys. We're going to get to as many of them as we possibly can. I want to get to some of the ones that were pre-submitted too. Here's a real quick one here. If you have a 24-hour phone service for your business, is it better to list your GMB hours as 24 hours, or should you only list your true in-office hours? Are there any plans to differentiate this in the future?
Can't talk about plans to differentiate in the future. So there is no plans. As far as the guide, let's talk about the guidelines, right? So the guidelines state that if you are a storefront, then you should only show your hours as your operating hours. In other words, when are you actually at that location? Think about the consumer experience. If you list yourself as 24 hours, I show up and nobody is there, well, A, I'll report you, but B, now you've just gotten a bad experience with a consumer. They could leave you a bad review. They could say you weren't there at your stated hours, which would be really bad for you, by the way. Could lead to a suspension if somebody reported you the right way. Yeah, if you're a service area-based business, that's a different story, because a service area-based business can and does have an answering service, of course. So,
or like a plumber has an emergency services.
Yeah. But what I tell people is with storefronts is this, especially in the service industry, because everybody wants to say they're 24 hours, right? But realistically, look at your call logs. When do people actually call you? And what you'll find out is most industries that we've consulted with is that after around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, there are no phone calls that really matter, unless you're like a locksmith. What do you think, Jason?
My advice for folks on this has always just been, hey, do your hours what your hours are. If you are actually available 24 hours, that's fine. Put it in as 24 hours, but you got to be available 24 hours as a service area business. But like I think you said, Ben, if you have a physical location, you should only put the hours you're actually in that physical location.
Yeah, and Google has that option now where you can do additional hours. So I tell everybody that I'm working with. And also, I mean, if you get suspended and you're set as 24 hours, Google's going to give you a lot of grief trying to get reinstated. And so they're going to want you to set your hours normal. So what I tell people to do is, if you are there between 10 and 5, set your hours between 10 and 5 and do additional hours to cover the rest of the hours that you're not there and you have phone support. So that way, people know, what's going on.
The only thing I think is additional hours don't actually impact visibility.
No, they don't. But businesses still show up when they're marked as closed, right? If I'm doing a local finder, it says closed, you can click on the expanded hours and see more. But yeah, I know what Google may or may not do in the future, remains to be seen. Google's been kind of surprising us a lot with a lot of these changes and tweaks to
a lot
GMB
of quick updates.
Months.
Yeah.
21.
All right, so I'm going to ask a quick one here that I think is kind of an interesting one. How do you optimize for your listing in DuckDuckGo? Now, I know this is going to sound really strange. First of all, I saw this question come out in the LMI forum, and there's a lot of people paying attention to it. I think number one, I'll tackle this one here first. I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts.
Sure.
First of all, DuckDuckGo is not exactly a huge search engine. It's got very, very low usability. That being said, it's out there. And here's an example where I did a coffee near me search in DuckDuckGo. And so people are wondering, well, how are we getting, how do I get my listings in here? How to make sure I'm optimized for this? So I'll throw this out here really simple. DuckDuckGo actually gets all of its local business information from other sources. It gets it from Yelp, it gets it from Apple Maps, it gets it from Bing, it gets it from TripAdvisor. It syndicates from a bunch of local sources. And in this one here, if you clicked on this, you can see they're actually using Apple Maps. But you go into here, and if you look at the data, you can see they got this data here from Yelp. So I've seen TripAdvisor, I've seen Apple, I've seen Bing, I've seen other sources. So bottom line, I consider DuckDuckGo to be a secondary directory. It's not something you need to optimize yourself. Just make sure your primary listings, right? Your Google My Business, your Apple Maps, your Yelp, your Bing, and your TripAdvisor listings are claimed and optimized. So for what that's worth, I just thought I'd throw that one out there. Jason, Ben, anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, so remember this. So Yelp is the authoritative website when it comes to a lot of the third-party platforms. So what you post, when you create your listing on Yelp, that's going to be replicated out to Apple Maps, and it's also going to get picked, and it gets picked up by Bing. And then, of course, as DuckDuckGo, which I don't think it's ever going to turn the corner, but I have a running bet on that. I've got about, I think, 9 years left to go on that 10-year bet to see if DuckDuckGo is going to overtake Google, which I'm saying it's not. But I digress. Anyway, once you update Yelp, it automatically gets pushed out to Apple Maps, unless you're using a third-party platform to work on your citations. I know, if you're using Moz Local or Uberall or Yext, then it helps feed to that stuff. But make sure that, Apple Maps is matching what you've got on Yelp. Check Yahoo and Bing, make sure they're all matched up. But I mean, as you saw in that screenshot that Eric showed, it was a pretty empty page. All of the stuff that we're used to when it comes to local was missing. I didn't see hours. I didn't see. Yeah, I don't see it. I just see a business name. Go back, the back one back.
Yeah, click on
the main. Yeah, right there. So all you have is a business name, a category, and an address. There's no hours. There's no telephone number. And then as you start clicking into a listing, then you just get a phone number. There's absolutely nothing here of any value. So you're not going to really be able to optimize it that well. I mean, I have to figure out how they get the images, but I mean, it's a pretty poor, that's a poor user experience on any level.
Bottom line, don't worry about it too much.
Pretty much.
Focus on the other listings, and this will take care of itself for right now.
And just out of curiosity, click on Dutch Brothers. Let's see how much information we brought in on a chain. Okay, so they brought in a little bit of the rich snippet, the address, the phone.
There are some hours in here too.
Hours. That's why I was saying, it's like, let's look at one that's naked versus a chain.
Well, and this could also, I will tell you why I think this is probably coming in more like this. It all has to do with optimizing your Yelp listing. So I know a lot of people do not like Yelp. They're very aggressive with their ad programs, but I'm telling you, I encourage all businesses to claim and optimize their Yelp listing as well, because Yelp is syndicating data to a bunch of places. They syndicate their reviews and their photos to Apple Maps. They syndicate reviews and photos to Bing. They're syndicating stuff here. They're syndicating stuff to a lot of places. And it was an interesting conversation I had with someone in the Facebook group as well. All right, I'll claim my listing, but I won't advertise at all. I said, well, I'll throw this out. There is one thing you may want to consider advertising on Yelp, and I'll just throw this out there for what it's worth. And that is the photo slideshow enhancement to your listing on Yelp. I'll tell you exactly why. I hate the fact that we have to maybe mention this. I think it's like $10 a month or something, or $20 a month or something.
Eric only
Why would you do this?
Per sign up, by the way.
Say what?
I said Eric only gets paid $2 per sign up. Just saying.
I know I don't get jack squat. I wish I did. But the only reason why I might recommend you consider this is because the featured image, the primary image of your listing, that's what gets syndicated to Apple Maps. That's what gets syndicated to Bing. That's what gets syndicated over to other places like DuckDuckGo, wherever it may be. And that's what shows up in your listing on Yelp as a primary one. That listing, you cannot control the order of those photos unless you buy the photo slideshow option. And I'm only saying that because I worked with one business here, great business, but their primary photo was the drinking fountain in their hallway. And for years it was that way. I finally said, guys, spend the $10 a month, upgrade it. They did instantly. It changed everywhere. So I'll throw that out for what it's worth. Again, not a huge fan necessarily of Yelp advertising, but this is one thing that I may recommend. So I'll throw that out for what that's worth.
Oh, hey, dude,
Hey.
you know what? I just thought about something that's total sidebar, but I think it would be kind of cool to bring up real quick because everybody has, I mean, that you just touched on something about controlling the image for your listing, right? There's something that I recently learned and I haven't shared it with anybody yet. So I'll just share it here. It's going up on a Google video that's going up onto the support pages. But anyway, you can actually control your GMB primary photo. Okay, your logo, check this out, you're gonna love it, with the GMB website cover photo. If you change the cover photo,
That's a great tip.
on the website, it will change the logo on your GMB listing. Works 100% of the time.
We'll change the logo or the cover or the primary photo, the cover photo on GMB.
Both, basically both. So you change the cover photo on the GMB website and it changes it on your GMB profile.
That is a great tip right there because I got tons of people who always ask me, how do I change the primary photo on my GMB listing?
Yeah, and you were just saying that about Yelp and I was like, God, I got to tell everybody why not.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love that. Okay, let's look at a couple other questions here. I'm going to ask a couple of ones that some live attendees are doing, and then we'll move on here. Let's ask a quick one. We haven't talked about GMB posts. Does it help to include keywords in your GMB posts? If the copy or posts are info about your services, wouldn't this help you rank some?
We did Mike Blumenthal and I did a study actually about this, and Joy. We all did a study about this when posts first came out, and they did impact ranking. Posts for the most part will not impact ranking. I believe there's still probably a little bit of semantic flavor that comes out of it, but really it's like putting when it comes to SEO in general, I always say don't keyword stuff things. Even if it does help you a little bit with ranking, don't keyword stuff it. Do write things a way that a customer should be in taking in your content. So I'm not going to actually put a yes or a no on it. I'm just going to say, just write good content.
Good content. Although I think we've seen that in general, Google My Business post the content is not being used much for ranking factors at this point. So again, it's more of a conversion and an engagement thing than I think anything else.
One last thing on that though, the keywords in it do matter for another purpose. So the keywords will matter because when you're in the local finder, it'll show up as a rich snippet.
As a snippet in the, yep.
You know, and it also has a possibility of triggering related businesses on top of other competitors on mobile. So in that aspect, keywords do matter.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Actually, then in that case, then, write it, do use appropriate keywords so that it can show up as a rich snippet if it needs to. Good point. Yeah. Jason, anything you want to add?
No, you know me, I hate posts. So I think honestly, I really wish Google would just figure out what they're going to do when it comes to social. Like they've just been playing around way too long, trying to figure it out as they go. And I think if they had a solid plan to, utilize it and maximize it, then maybe I would be more excited. But I mean, it's just kind of like, they keep tinkering around with it. They move it up, they move it down, they, use rich snippets, they don't use rich snippets on it. It's just, I don't know, I've seen too many businesses frustrate themselves, 9 ways from Sunday, working on it. And I know friends that spend so much time having to create Google posts on a daily basis. And I'm like, why are you focusing your time and energy on that when you could be doing really great content on your website, and promoting your website organically?
Yeah. And what we say is it's really simple. Do a post once a week. It's that easy. They expire after 7 days. If you have a COVID announcement, throw that up. It lasts for 14 days, no image. Although I want to really quickly just dispel one thing, which I see a lot out there. That is, a lot of people think posts are a way of Google doing social. Posts have nothing to do with social. The follow button which is on mobile, has nothing to do with social because it's a one-way communication. Yeah, so anyway, so basically, but so that's it. But the follow button and the post button work together, of course, but it's not social.
So here's kind of I want to say semi-quick one, but let me tackle it because I do see this one being asked quite a bit as well. It says, we've successfully signed our business up for voice searches such as Siri, but are struggling with Amazon Alexa. What's the best and easiest way of getting on voice search without paying a third party to do it for you? So a little that I'll throw out there, I have actually seen, talking about the scams, Jason, I've seen a bunch of scams out there telling people, hey, you're not currently optimized on Amazon Alexa, pay us and we'll get it for you. And what it really is it's a hidden service for someone to try to sell you a Yext subscription, right? They're marking it up big time. So let me just address that one quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but let me address this one. So we do have a post out here. I'll share that post in the chat on how to optimize for local voice search. But bottom line, I'll just break it down for you. If you want to be optimized in Google Assistant, optimize your Google My Business listing. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. If you want to be optimized in Apple Siri, you got to claim and optimize your Google Maps listing at Google Maps Connect. And then you also want to claim and optimize your Yelp listing because reviews and photos are brought into Apple from Yelp. And so if you want that boosting in Siri, then you've got to look at both your Apple listing and your Yelp listing. For Alexa is getting all of its voice information. Let me pop down here to that one here. So it's getting all of its information primarily from Yelp. That's where it's getting most of its information from. On there, they have a deal with Yelp out there. However, gosh, it was a couple years ago now. Yext did sign an agreement with Amazon that if you do use the Yext service, you're submitting your listings directly into Amazon's database as well. So you can do that, but if you're not, your Yelp listing, you'll still be found on Amazon Alexa. You do not have to pay for a Yext listing. And then I'll throw out one more thing just because it's out there. There actually still is this thing called Microsoft Cortana. It actually has a surprisingly high market search comparison. 20% market share in the voice market. Because think about it, Xbox, all Windows devices, they're all built in with this. And in that way, it all gets its data from Bing Places. So if you're optimizing your Bing Places listing, your Apple Maps listing, your Yelp listing, and your Google My Business listing, you'll get in the 4 biggest voice search engines that are out there. Anything you guys want to add to that?
I got 2 things. Number one, if I'm on my Xbox, I'm definitely going to search for pizza near me if I'm playing games. Just saying. Just saying.
Hey, look.
Yeah. No, actually, that was beautifully done, dude. The only thing I could add to that is that there is a hidden bonus to the Google Guarantee and the Google Screen, more specifically. And that is with Google Screen, you do get exposure into all of those platforms, actually, with voice search. It's one of the selling points.
Nice. Here's a good one. Can videos be uploaded to a Google My Business post? And what's the specs on that?
Do you want to go, Jason, or shall I?
No, you go.
All right. Used to be 100 megabytes. Now it's 75 megabytes. 30 seconds is the length. You want to do a minimum of 250 by 250 because that's like what a thumbnail size is. You can go ahead and scale it up as high as you want to, though, because Google will automatically scale it based on surface. I will say one other thing, and that is that since the duration length is stated, at least in the guidelines, as 30 seconds, there have been quite a few examples that I've seen out there where 30 seconds is actually more of a guideline, not a rule.
Yeah, I'll throw out there that Google support documents also say that they recommend at a minimum of 720p resolution, which is 1280 pixels wide by 720 pixels tall. You could also go up to 1080p, which is 1440 by 1080. So a 16:9 aspect ratio is also really important. So I would say, your other things, your file size limits, your length limits are there, but I'd also throw out, I would do a minimum of 720p resolution, 1280 by 720 on that would be my recommendation on that.
Yeah.
Trisha says that she's uploaded longer than a 30-second video for a post. So she said she forgot about the limit and went ahead and took. So I think you're right, Ben. Take the 30-second video as a guideline, but you never know whenever they're going to enforce that guideline at some point.
It's with
Exactly.
It's like all things Google, right? It's like the guidelines are exactly that. They're
Yep.
gray. They can change their mind. Just gotta play around with it.
All right. So here's a good one. And maybe we don't want to get into this one because this is a fun one, but I'll throw it out there. If I add EXIF data to my images, I've seen that has worked in helping boost my listing. Can I do that? Or can I upload an animated GIF and add geocodes that would make that even better? So I think there's two things. One, can I add an animated GIF as an image to my GMB listing and prove it? Number two, can I geotag images and will that help my listing?
No, neither. So, Andy Simpson, do you want to weigh in on the GIF? No, sorry, buddy. No, there was a point in time where you could actually upload GIFs, and then Google came in and scrapped that like right away as soon as they saw that was available. If you want to spend the time, and I feel sorry for like this one business, he did that. I don't know how many photos he added XF data into. Look, Google scrapes all that data out as soon as you upload it to GMB. So, look, this is one of those myths that's been going on for 10 years now. Like ever since it first came out, like it just will never die. If look, there's no. And Mike Blumenthal says it. Quit looking for the silver bullet instant rankings. It's not there. If there really truly was a magical, do two different things and boom, you're going to rank. This is not it. I've done countless studies where I have added that excess data, and it had zero impact on rankings and listings. It does absolutely nothing. So. You want to upload your photos? That's great. Depending on the industry and the business, it's actually, I've seen it works better if your customers upload photos. I've seen a lot of metrics where it shows that customer uploaded photos perform better. They get more views and engagement than business uploaded photos. So look, I mean, stop, trying to look for, the flashy, quick instant rankings. Come on, we're marketers. You got to do all things well. But if you're looking to geotag your photos, I'm not going to stop you because your competitors are going to be doing stuff that actually moves the needle and outranking you, and then you're going to be going back to the people that are telling you that and saying, "Hey, I did all this stuff. Why am I still not ranking?"
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that is this, Eric. And Jason, I mean, all of the points that Jason made is 100% correct. I don't do this either, right? And most people in the local SEO space don't. Google like Jason was saying, Google strips that data and it replaces it with data that it wants, and it's going to put in there from the location. So that's why if you download the data, you'll see that there's some EXIF data actually still in there. But it's from Google. Now, if you read the guidelines, also Google states that they prefer that an image be done at the location. Mm-hmm. So they prefer that. And another thing to think about too is, and this is kind of all Google-y, is that Google will trust user-generated content more than it will trust the content from the merchant in most cases. Oh. So that's another aspect to it.
I'll throw a couple quick thoughts on this as well. So you're right. It's been proven Google does strip out all the extraneous metadata out of the image before it uploads and puts it in. That being said, I will throw this out that I don't believe that Google throws away any data. And so as they're uploading it, they may strip it from the image, but it's not necessary. I don't know that it's necessarily stripped from somewhere in the database. Interestingly, we had Joe Danzer on Local Marketing Institute a while back, and he's, if you guys don't know him, he's a fantastic, photographer, and he does all the 3D tours and all that kind of stuff. Really well known in the industry for this. But he had a really interesting point on this. His whole point was he's seen those kind of people claiming those things as well. And they're like, well, I've seen it. I've added these photos. He said, no. What actually happened was the business got busy and actually began adding photos on a regular basis to their listing. They showed engagement. They started actually adding photos. It had nothing to do with the geotagging of those photos, but people were making the inference, because I uploaded geotagged photos, that made a difference in my listing. And he's like, it absolutely not. They ran the test and they showed it did not have any impact on that. So there is a lot of, there's a lot of rumors out there. A lot of people sell this. A lot of people sell it as part of their secret GMB sauce program. It's not true. That being said, does it hurt to have the geotags? No. Does it hurt to have images on your website that are properly geotagged? No. But Ben, to your point, take the real photos with the real geotagging on them and just upload that instead of trying to fake all the data. If people would just put as much effort into just really running and marketing their business as they do trying to game the system, they'd be a whole hell of a lot better off, in my opinion.
That could lead.
I could not agree more.
That could lead you straight into spam, man.
And I saw a business, as soon as they did that, they uploaded all their geotag photos, they got suspended. And it was just like, Google saw that there's just a lot of abuse happening with the listing. They saw suspicious activity and nuked the listing. So, use at your caution, at your discretion, but I wouldn't do it.
All right, a few more questions here. We're getting to run a little low on time here, but I'm gonna get a couple last minute questions in here. Is it worthwhile for me to drive traffic to a GMB site or GMB post via ads, social media, email, whatever? Does that have any impact on ranking or engagement factors? Get a big thumbs down from Ben. You got to talk, Ben, if you want your video to come up.
Oh, sorry. Big thumbs down on no across the board.
No, actually, there have been some studies to show that it's had a little bit of an impact, but you would have to keep consistently doing that. But I mean, look, if you're going to be running ads, why not run ads to what's important, to your landing page? Why are you sending paid ads to a GMB?
Right. Run ads to your own website, get more traffic there, build it in. I mean, look, it's a funnel, right? Your end game is to try to get exposure, get people in, and ultimately get them to do business with you, call you, come to your store. To me, GMB is a funnel that drives people either directly to engagement, calling you, or to your website. Don't waste money on ads driving to Google My Business.
And the same thing with links. It's like Google owns your GMB profile. Everybody, I hope you understand that. It's in the terms of service. Okay, so your GMB profile is at their will. They can remove it. It's just like any social platform that's out there. Why would you drive links to something that somebody else owns? It's insanity is what it is. And like Jason was saying, even in those limited studies, it's like, the bump was very minimal, if anything. I had one study I was just running. It's just a test I ran for 3 years, where every month I would toss a link, a GMB profile, and I would use some nonsense keyword. Never, ever ranked for that keyword. Didn't expect it to, by the way. So, but still, I mean, it's just like, take care of your own house first.
Yep. All right. Last question here, and I'm debating which one I want to do.
Do the one that I submitted.
Which one? The first one? Can you be sued for spam fighting?
Yes.
So if you guys don't know, I'll just throw it out here. Jason is one of the best spam fighters in the world. I mean, he's taken down entire networks. This guy knows his stuff when it comes to fighting spam, not just on Google, but on other places. But Google My Business is one of his specialties. So all right, Jason, can you be sued for spam fighting? I think you're talking about a business? Could a business be sued for fighting spam?
Yeah. If you were to go, if I was to go out there and start doing that, so kind of piggybacking on what Ben just said, this is Google's playground, right? This is Google's platform, so they own that platform. So as long as you are doing legitimate edits and you are suggesting that a listing is fake or is abusing the system with keyword stuffing, and you're doing the suggested edits or you're going to the redressal form, you will be fine. If you start getting into that black hat where you're doing nefarious edits and you are trying to change their category, trying to change their hours, trying to mark them as closed when they're really open, then yes, then that's where you can be held liable for those unauthorized edits. You could be, sued. I mean, look, they could sue you regardless if, just to try and prove a point and be a big pain in the butt. But as long as you're abiding by the terms of service and you're not trying to be a knucklehead and really just destroy businesses, then yes, you would be fine. But when you are doing a suggested edit and they say, hey, would you like to add a photo? No, don't add that photo, because that's how it's going to get back to you, so it's the one thing you don't want to do. But I mean, if you have a legitimate cause and you're telling Google that this listing is violating their terms of service, then yes, definitely do that. But also, if you are doing a bunch of nefarious edits, you run the risk of having your account blacklisted, and anything that's associated with that email account will get banned. So you lose your GMB listings with an account level suspension. You'd lose your YouTube account, the whole nine.
We'll definitely have to do a lot more on GMB spam here. Ben, what'd you have?
Two things to add to this, the common questions that I get, and Jason's 100% on tap with everything he just said. And that is that I get asked, well, how can I find out that somebody made an edit to my listing, right? Change my name, change my category, etc. It's actually very easy to do. You basically, and I'm not a lawyer, I have to say that right up front, but what you have to do is you actually have to sue a Jane or a John Doe, and for an unknown, basically for the edit, and because you don't actually know who did it. So you start a lawsuit that way, and then what you do is you have to go ahead and the lawyers have to subpoena Google for that information and that user's information. They will then, they'll reach out to that user, Google will, and basically said, why did you do this? And if the reason's not good enough, then they'll go ahead and they'll go release the information to the party who's doing the subpoena. So that's how that gets back to you. The secondary question, the secondary thing I want to add to that is what about redressal submissions? So redressal submissions, you got to remember, Google's collecting, and they say this at the bottom, they're collecting all of this data on you, basically, on the redressal form. They're also asking you for your email address, right? But kind of who cares about that? They've got all your other information. So basically, my suggestion there is try and use a third party. Use a third party for your redressals if you need to. If you are paranoid, basically, about getting sued.
Yeah, especially if it's a sensitive thing. I mean, in general, though, I mean, we typically recommend, one of the biggest tactics to help boost your own position is to go out and look for spam that you're competing with and report it. Get rid of the crap, right?
Stop crap on the map. Yeah, wink, wink to Joy Hawkins.
Exactly. Yes. Well, gentlemen, that's all the time we have for today. Really want to thank you guys for joining us. Thanks everyone else for joining us. I know we had a lot of questions we haven't answered. We will put those in our queue for next week. We're gonna do this every single week. Jason, Ben, and I will almost always, or some combination of the three of us, will be here. We're also going to bring in some guests along the way. So if you have anybody you'd like to recommend, please let us know. We have a ton of people we're already wanting to tap into. So these are going to be great sessions. We like the Q&A kind of format. Let us know what you think, and we hope to see you next time. Gentlemen, really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric, as always.